Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host Neil Gibb, and today I've got a podcast where in my mind I thought it was going to go one way, but it's a little conversation that I've just had with Lauren before we hit record. This podcast can go anywhere. So Lauren, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Neil. Very, very honoured to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Lots of industry respect for you.
Thank you.
And the vibe is beautiful in Neil's space. So thank you for setting that up for me.
Well, very welcome. Thank you. So I was going to try and give you an introduction, but then you just told me all these things that have been going on. So who is Lauren Zornada?
Well, I've put down something along the lines of an introduction. So it's the entrepreneurial real estate mum, but I feel like I'm so much more than that. And this is where I really want to dive deeper with a platform that I respected in the industry, number one, and also just throw you in the freaking deep end because I know you can take it, number two. So I love that you have been on board to switch things up a little bit today and just keep it raw and real.
Absolutely. Well, it's all about you. So
yeah,
let's get cracking.
Awesome. Sounds good.
We have known each other. I thought we'd known each other since about 2016, but
yeah,
you said it was around 2019 that we spoke at Perth Property Developers. I've had both Angad and Adam on the podcast as well.
Yep.
And you did a presentation on Airbnb short stay, and I did one on HMO, and crowd loved it.
Yeah.
Heaps of questions afterwards.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool, and that was kind of like, I wouldn't say my introduction to you because I knew who you were before, but I think that's where our friendship was really formed, wasn't it?
Yeah. So how did you find out about me before that? Curious.
Probably found you on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
It was quite a while ago, and my dates are all over the place. Like I say, I thought it was
8 years.
2016. It was 2019. So
Time doesn't exist, Neil.
does it?
No, not at all.
Should we go down that rabbit hole?
We live in the rabbit hole.
Yes. So, firstly, we'll get into what you're doing now and what's been going on in your life. But how did you get into real estate, and when did you get into real estate, and what have you done in real estate?
Really good question.
Yeah.
I think really my family were an influence for me with real estate, and it was really just the great Australian dream of owning a home. You know, my parents were building properties for $19,000, house and land packages in Perth. And interestingly enough, like the first project that I went into to make a profit off, I bought in the first suburb that my parents built their house and land package in.
Pretty standard, isn't it?
Based off the fact that they had paid $19,500 and I was paying $320,000. And that was my metric. And I wasn't an educated property investor at that time. I was a working John. And actually, I was working full-time for Barbagello's here in Perth.
Right.
And doing that house flip on the weekends and at night time on my own to get it off the ground.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was...
So you paid $300K for it?
Yeah, $319,000.
Right.
And then about a year or so later, I sold it for $485,000.
Boom.
And did a $130,000 profit
Nice.
from that. And that was just a renovation.
What was the market like at that time? Was it moving upwards? Was it moving downwards?
Tiny little bubble happened. So yeah, 2012, there was a little bit of movement in the market. So we definitely capitalised off a little tiny bit of a bubble happening. But the suburb, just in general, there's a lot of talk about rezoning in that pocket and people just wanting to get into the subdividable blocks and hope that the city of Wanneroo were going to pass that zoning for the area, which they did pass.
Right.
So it was thought out as a strategy of what's going to be a desirable investment for somebody going forward. And I've carried that on with every single house flip that I've done. It's always had to have multiple layers of a strategy built in so you can pivot and move within that yourself, and then also offer that opportunity to the next person.
Yeah, so multiple exit strategies from the same deal.
Yeah.
Yes, best way to do it, eh?
But then, so we went a little bit deeper later on in the business and started to have an entry strategy.
What's an entry strategy?
So who are we buying it off and for how much? So learning that side, how are we finding this property and what ticks the box there? So like an example would be a distressed property. So my strategy was I would only buy projects off the bank. They were, what's the word for it?
Mortgagee in possession?
Yeah, mortgagee. So repossessed
Yeah.
properties, and that offer's going directly to the bank.
Yeah.
So tend to be cash offers and a very low purchase price, and then that's a buffer there for your project to take that in like an insurance policy for you, that if your exit strategy, the market does a little flippity flop, you're just going to break even.
Which we've definitely seen back in the days.
Yeah, and just have a lesson, you know, like the worst case scenario for me as a property flipper was that I learnt something from a live deal, and I never had a worst case scenario for me. My worst case scenario was nothing, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that came on later.
Yeah.
Definitely had to.
How did you find the deals from the bank?
Well, this is all networking and rapport building and putting yourself out there. So how you've said that you found me on social media, you're not even sure how you did.
Yeah, just seeing you.
I hear that from everybody, Neil. It's
Yeah.
so crazy. Like now I'm networking again, back, you know, a couple of years post-COVID, new faces. I think business has changed for a few people. Like there's segments that have boomed as well. So I'm meeting new faces just purely off that. And then they're going, I've followed you before you were pregnant. I'm like, what do you mean? Like we're having a conversation now for like basically 4 or 5 years later. How did you find me?
Yeah.
And I don't really know.
Because you've been flipping property since 2012. So you've been around the industry for 12 years, really, right?
Well, yeah, I had a quick look at when the first date was, first property was in, I think it was 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
So 14 years.
Oh, I'm old.
You're a veteran. How many flips do you think you've done since 2010?
Do you know, it's countless. I need to sit there and actually go through properly because I have not spent the time to actually sit there and put numbers, and it was never a numbers game on volume for me. It was always, and it still is, it's always a numbers game on profitability. It's green line marker for me. So if it is a numbers game and you're going to run it at like, you know, let's just say on a property development number that you're running your profits at 14% as a target, and then you're going to do volume off that. Okay, it can be a volume game, but for me, I'd prefer to make 50% profit and do less of them and work a lot less hours. So it was a good focus.
Yeah. And when you say 50% profit, is that cash in the deal or purchasing it and selling it for 50% more?
Yeah, purchasing and selling it for 50% more.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of those.
Yeah.
So,
and what sort of time frame would you be looking at for one of them deals? Because I've came to one of your renovations.
Yeah.
I might have actually met you at the renovation first, and
Yeah.
then you did the presentation afterwards.
Okay.
Or was it the other way around?
Yeah, because Angard, the PPD team would come around and bring like,
I think that's how it happened.
either family members or other investors or business partners would come onto my sites
Yes.
and just have a little look around at what I was doing. Yeah, we just honestly, it was just having a bit of fun, industry fun with what we're all doing, and it still is a really great community.
That community of business owners, entrepreneurs, property people. It's pretty close knit and everybody knows each other.
Yeah,
which is a good and a bad thing.
Well,
but I came to that project and I remember you had all the drawings out on the walls. Everything was very systemized.
Yes.
And that was probably.
Well, I'm glad you remember that.
Yeah. There was a lot of work going on. There was walls coming down. I've never seen so many tradies on one site in my life. I was like, fuck, this girl is going hard.
Yes. Yeah, look, I've done a house flip in 14 days before.
Right.
And like the Western Australian way of doing contracting and the wait a while way is tradies will go, we don't like to layer up on top of each other. You know, the electrician wants to be there when he's there and no one else on site because it cuts power to this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, grow some balls, please. Like, have you seen how they do it on the East Coast? It's not like this. So if you want to be on my team, we're going to be working all together. And you know what? It was fun. It was challenging, but in a good way. You know, it was a community vibe within the trade teams, and I would go and get everyone coffees, lunch, would have a beer later or whatever, and it was just, I have the best memories of those times because of the method to the madness that I brought in, and it just made everybody push so hard, and then the product that came out was built from love, you know, and I could feel it anyway. And I feel like the buyers, they definitely did, because they were willing to put their money where their mouth was.
Yeah, and a lot of them projects were probably done in the downward market, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All of them.
So to make good profit in that market, would you prefer to do flips in this market or that market?
Any
market.
Absolutely,
no
any
preference.
market. No.
As long as the numbers are there.
We create the opportunity, Neil. We're trailblazing a way through when everyone else is following the market or following the media. That media hype, those numbers, they're all 3 to 6 months behind what's actually happening on the ground. That's the first biggest mistake. So there's just for me, it doesn't really matter at all.
So you're doing property flips in 4 to 6 weeks and making 50% on the project. And then we've got developers out there that are going through subdivisions. And I was just thinking, when you said there you did a flip and the suburb was potentially getting rezoned.
Yeah.
And you probably made more money doing that flip than they would subdividing that block and then selling off the rear block, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
and then it's like
money everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, money in is time.
And where did you learn to do flips?
Interesting. So I am a creative person. For me, it's being able to see, it's like being an artist, being able to put what's in your mind onto a canvas and then translating that message for other people to see. House flips to me are like my canvas of who I am. So I feel it comes from a really deep, passionate place, and I honestly will be in real estate till the day I die. Yeah. I'll be doing renovations.
It's addictive, isn't it?
Oh, it's a bad addiction.
But you see the impact that you can have, specifically on the end user of the product that you create. Yeah. And that's the addictive part.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Absolutely. It's an emotional, triggering event for everybody. Homes, it's like food, it's a necessity business. It's something that it affects your mood. It has so many different levels and layers and dimensions to it. It's not just business. Yeah. It's a fundamental asset. So like my heart is massively in real estate, and it will be forever.
So where did you learn to be sort of structured and process driven with your renovations? Do you have any coaches or mentors in the early days? Yeah,
so I went and did my project management degree. So I thought, interestingly enough, there's me, 23-year-old, and my ex-husband at the time was working FIFO, so we had the borrowing capacity. So I was the full-time property person, but also I was a young female in a male-dominated industry, and I went out of the car industry where I was at the top of my game, I felt like, in that area, and I didn't have the desire to grow that, but I had a lot of industry respect. And then I went out and I had no industry respect. And like
every different industry as well.
Totally different industry. And like the quotes that I was getting from tradesmen, I would literally call them and go, is there fucking 24 karat gold in your paint? Like, I was so confused, Neil. So I was like, okay, I need to go and get some qualifications, which I didn't. No one ever asked me for the certificates. Nah. It was really interesting, but it did teach me people management, like all of those, like you asked, why was I so structured? Why did I have these formulas? It came all from that certificate,
from the degree.
Yeah,
right. Was
absolutely.
that Perth-based as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so had a few hours of experience that went behind that, which was really good, so didn't have to do it for as long, and didn't implement all of it either, again.
Doesn't sound like you needed to.
No.
Because you got results, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So in the early days as well, when you started these flips, were you using your own money? Were you joint venturing with other people? Were you being creative with your offers? I know you said you did a lot of them with the banks. Did you do any seller joint ventures or anything like that? Yeah,
I did a vendor finance purchase, and that was actually my first Airbnb property.
Right.
So, like, networking and community are everything in this game. If you want to stay investing your own money, yes, it's a slower and safer way to do small level investing, but it is slower, a lot slower. So I was like, all right, now, if I trust myself, that was the first question. Do I trust what I'm doing here? Am I the person that is the fit for that person? And then am I going to be able to gauge whether they're the right fit for me? And it has to be based off actionable. I have to see the success of that person and know there's alignment at that level. And they have to know that with me. And then, yes, but it took a really, really long time to bridge that gap. So it was the classical investment strategy of just working as a couple, as a married couple, saving, getting into a property, using the bank, then having equity, going into another project and so forth. And then it got to a point where it was just like, this is not going to grow this fast enough.
And boring.
Yeah. And also, look,
Yeah.
I think having an entertaining life is quite a blessing, you know, if you can really put yourself out there in a positive light and to really create an impact for good. It's so fulfilling now.
100%.
Yeah, so it just, everything started shifting for me and it wasn't about money anymore.
So when you said there, when I asked you if you'd done some joint ventures, you said first I have to ask myself if I trust myself. What do you mean by that?
Do I trust my skill level to be able to come in and deliver that project for that person? Can I meet their expectations? Do I trust that I have the time to be able to do this? That, you know, there's so many things that you have to take responsibility for before you know, we're not selling, I always say this to people, we're not selling socks, you know, we're not selling $5 small
Hundreds
ticket.
of thousands of dollars on the line.
We're talking, multi-million dollar projects, you know, I take that very seriously for a joint venture partner as well, to have an outcome for all of us that is going to be a massive win. And also it's mindset too. Like, you don't want to be in business with somebody who they have a problem for every solution.
There's plenty of them out there, right? And it's interesting that you say, do you trust yourself first? Because if you don't trust yourself, how is anybody else supposed to trust you with their hard-earned money to invest in projects?
Yeah, so I felt like I had to back myself in the beginning, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're not starting from family money or a trust fund, or, you know, your family's accountants and all the mentors and all of that stuff that comes with it, which is absolutely brilliant as well. You know, you then have to kind of back yourself and do whatever it takes.
I think the family money trust fund thing, access to large capital, easy capital, there was a part of me in a time in my life when I thought that would be good.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't have become the person I've become if I just had it so easy.
Yeah.
There's fulfillment in them battles, the hustle, the grind.
Yeah.
Like you say, you got to back yourself at some point, haven't you? And take the plunge.
Yeah.
There's growth in that. You come out the other end of them projects a bigger, better person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. Love it.
No shadows here.
So we spoke about the first rental project.
Yeah.
How did you get into Airbnbs and why?
Look, being around mentors that are in real estate, you hear so many different types of strategies that are working for people.
Shiny object syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, this is it. They call them seminar goers, and I absolutely love them, and I am so much one of them myself.
I was one of them. Loved them.
I love it.
Yeah.
But also I feel you're the same as me. You had razor sharp focus on real estate. No matter what was there and what was going on and everything, it was like, you know what? This is just my niche, and I'm just going to do whatever I can to master this niche. So anything that I felt like was incongruent with what I was already doing, so house flipping and then like entry strategies, exit strategies, I wanted to learn. And what's the best way of learning, Neil?
Doing
it. Yeah. So I was like, I've got absolutely nothing to lose. I don't have a single mentor in Perth. And we just were winging it. You know, we went out, when I say we, so I did a vendor finance deal with a property developer, and that property developer wanted to turn the entire complex into Airbnbs. Neither of us knew what we were doing, but it tripled the rental return of the property.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Off the bat. And I was like, this is so interesting. And like learning marketing, you know, social media marketing, I feel like I have a bit of a natural knack at, and I'm actually very passionate about sharing just for my sake, like documenting. It's really fun for me. It just gives me another like, I think I got really bored on house flips, being in business on my own in the beginning, like house flipping on my own, that I had to create and connect and network to my house flip.
It can be lonely, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we just brought all of that stuff all in, and our marketing for the Airbnbs had to be taken really seriously in every element of that. And then the dollar signs were reflecting the effort that we were putting in. So we just ran with it for a while.
But the Airbnbs that you did, were they yours? Did you start doing them for other clients? Did you buy them? Did you take head leases on them?
Yeah, so head leases were a really excellent way to grow the business at a fast rate. It's always market dependent. So this is the interesting thing now. We're talking back, pre-2022. Having and actually this is the reason why I wanted to come on this podcast and throw you in the deep end, Neil. Is to talk about the current market, because it has changed, and I have a bit of a premonition around what's happening with Airbnb investors. And even though yes, it's still a great model and it still makes fantastic money, it's becoming very risky for them.
Why is that?
Well, there's a lot of people that are homeless in Perth and are Airbnb hopping, and with that sort of desperation comes all sorts of tricks, and they're really learning what hosts do to red flag around their business model, and they're superseding that because pain produces, it's a very big motivator. Pleasure and comfort levels that, people don't grow as fast there. So you're dealing with an environment of potential clients that are suffering, that are moving quicker than investors that are a bit more in their comfort zone. Right. So I'm seeing a potential risk there.
So they're kind of playing the system.
Playing the system, 100%. I'm still a super host at the moment, so this is on the ground observations, but also I feel I've always had a little bit of an inkling ahead of time on a few things. So I just worry personally that it may not be such a nice business to run in a year or two for an Airbnb small scale investor.
Right.
And also then on the big scale side of things, who are your staff? Who are your team? And are you serving them best in their livability, their lifestyle in Perth? Are you serving them best right now? Like, this is becoming a bit of a humanitarian issue.
Well, the market is on its knees, isn't it? So what sort of tricks are you seeing from these people when you're saying they're sort of playing the system? What are they doing?
Yeah, so fake profiles, they're not checking into the properties at all. It's a normal working person profile, and they're allowing a friend of the family to stay there with their kids and dogs. So they're not even checking in at all.
Right.
They're not following the house rules. It's just they're looking for somewhere short term to be able to keep a house over their head for their families. So they'll just do absolutely anything to be able to do that.
Are they paying the rent on it? Are they
well,
ways around that as well?
From what I'm seeing on the hosting groups, there's a lot of questions going out there, like to pay cash and to take things out, and the insurance liability with all of that sort of stuff. If you start entering those spaces, can be a really big downhill slide for an uneducated investor. And I just feel like there's a lot of uneducated investors, 2 or 3 Airbnbs that are plunging into a market that I feel like has capped out a little bit for what is coming.
Because the market's going to get worse before
it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And we would like to think that the governments and local councils have an obligation to think ahead of this, and they may just turn the switch off and not approve short stay development. And it's a lot of money. You're paying triple the fees for a DA approval to do, short-term accommodation. It's a 12-month approval. It's just...
Is it really? 12 months?
It's a 12-month approval.
I didn't realise that. Interesting.
They're making some good coin, and I just don't feel on a community level it's supporting the lifestyle of the teams that are going to be working within these business models in the residential space.
Well, the state government have already released a $10,000 bonus for people to take their properties off Airbnb.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah, take it. Is that what you think?
100%.
Yeah. And
room lease your properties out.
Room by room.
Room by room, Neil.
Thanks for the plug.
You're welcome. I know, I actually said that to one of my coaches. I'm like, it's funny, we shared a stage together back in 2019 speaking about our areas of expertise for passive income, and I was Airbnb girl and you're HMO girl, and that was
I'm
HMO girl.
Thanks, Lauren.
Sorry, Neil. And now, look, I think it's actually really healthy and raw to be able to be on a podcast and speak the truth about how you see it, and not speak to be able to fund your business dreams or whatever it is. It's just, like I said before, it's a humanitarian effort that needs to be looked at here now, because, you know, if you don't have happy team members in your business, and an Airbnb is a business, it's not going to go smoothly. It's not going to be a result that's going to really help here.
So how can we keep them happy? How can we support them?
Listen, you know, and what I've been listening to and I have been on the ground again, I have a few homes with multiple occupancy in them. So the home opens, as you would be aware, it's like a very popular nightclub. And I love being there and hearing all the stories. And also a lot of them, they feel very negatively towards Airbnb owners. They're really bent out of shape on that. So I'm like, and these are potentially your cleaners or your property managers. Like, what exactly is your goal here now with this Airbnb business? You know, it's just, are we doing a risk analysis here correctly on what's happening? So,
do we know how many Airbnbs are on the ground in Perth?
Interesting question. I don't know at the moment.
Don't know.
Yeah. I feel it would be declining with the grant, because that was only approved, I think, about 4 months ago, December 2023.
$10,000 or to somebody who could potentially rent their property out for $30,000, but they're getting $60,000, $70,000 on Airbnb.
Yeah.
It's not a huge amount of money, really, considering, is it? But like you say, it's the humanitarian aspect of actually taking your house off short stay, holiday let, and giving it to somebody that actually needs a roof over the head.
And it's also an insurance policy for you as an owner of maybe 1 or 2 Airbnbs to have your property in good condition, not have the headaches of trying to evict through the courts a short stay person who has managed to get through the loophole. You know, it's just, yes, money is great and profit is great in a property. You know, that's actually what we set out to do.
Yeah.
But don't we set out for long-term sustainability when we go into that as a business venture 100%. As well? So it's just, you're investing a lot of money to be able to furnish it, insure it, everything. There's still interest rates. You know, the dollars and cents part of it, if you are not receiving that income at one point and you don't have the insurance policy, and yeah, it's just, to me, it's a bit too risky.
So what's happened? Are we still flipping properties? Are we still doing Airbnb, or has all that stopped?
Look, there'll always be an opportunity to flip properties for me. So whether it's joint venturing with somebody and coming on as a project manager in the background of that, I'll welcome that opportunity. I absolutely love house flipping. And again, you're creating equity, you're creating profit. There's not all these passive factors that are there of, like, hopefully you're going to make this sort of income in a year. You know, do a very, very quick turnaround in the same market, and it's quite capsulated and controlled. So I've always loved that about house flipping. And there's lots of ugly houses in Perth that still need to be renovated. I drive around and I'm like, the brown brick 3x1 there's just a flood of them still here. So there's so much opportunity, and it's not going anywhere for a very, very long time. So
what's it like buying in this market though? And how do you gauge your tap out point and a buy price in a market where there's so much emotion?
Yeah.
And buys are just coming in now 15-20% over asking price to start with.
Yeah.
And then how do you factor in your sale price if your buy price is getting squeezed so tight?
Yeah. Look, as an investor, so we're not talking to the mum and dad buying to live in property as their primary residence. As an investor, you need to know the power of networking. And if you can have conversations with property owners that are looking to sell in their portfolio privately, and you can figure out what a win-win is there, you'll be able to do a very good deal.
Creative.
Yeah.
So we're talking again, vendor finance, potentially joint ventures again.
All of it. There's always a need for that. And even like bigger scale property owners and developers, you know, the market when it's chaotic like this, no one wants to be in there facing all of that. You know, it's tumultuous. Even renting out a property as a private landlord, one property and having to do a home open it's quite overwhelming, I'm seeing, for those owners.
Oh man, it's crazy out there.
It's really, really crazy.
Yeah.
So you've got to have nerves of absolute freaking steel to go into this market now as a mum and dad investor.
Yeah.
And also on the big end, they still feel the same way. You know, there's a whole heap of noise there that they would prefer to delete and find a win-win transaction. So there's always opportunity. And it really is just to help out and learn what are the trigger points and how do you solve that for the individual and the scenario.
Yeah. So if you can take the real estate out of it, the price point out of it,
Yeah.
it could be a whole range of scenarios that people are trying to sell.
Yeah. Focus on the green line.
Yeah. And we're seeing at the minute, a lot of people don't want to sell because there's nowhere to move to.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So what we're seeing with some of the offers we've been putting in on some of the properties we've been buying is delayed settlements.
Yeah.
And that being a flexible settlement as well. So like we say, look, we'll get finance approval and then we'll put a 3-month settlement in there for you so you can find somewhere else to live. But if you find somewhere and you need it to settle earlier, come back to us, we'll reduce it.
Yeah.
And then, everybody moves on.
Yeah, because it's a big fear now, isn't it, that you're having to mitigate that you would never have had to mitigate in the past. Yeah.
True. So the things that we've just spoke about there, the things that I was expecting us to talk about when we sat down in this podcast.
Yeah.
But there's been other things going on in your life, hasn't there?
Yeah. So look, it's what's the word for it? How do you acquire wisdom, Neil? I'd love to hear it from you.
Wisdom is just a series of mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, isn't it? And that's ultimately the line to success. It's a series of mistakes without losing. Didn't Churchill say it? It's making mistake after mistake without losing enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And getting back up and going again.
So the only time you lose is when you quit.
Yeah.
That's the only time.
True.
So for me, I feel like I'm in the wisest position that I've been in my life, and I've always been willing to fail. Actually, like my method and my methodology, weirdly enough. So we spoke about all the certificates and all that fluffy end of it, but I've always been willing to fail faster. Yeah. Like the quicker that we can get through these lessons and go through it, the quicker we're going to elevate in what we're doing. So, you know, I've really stretched my consciousness through that in my whole life, and still am, you know, became a mother. You've become a parent as well in the last couple of years. And that is, I feel, a very big stretch in consciousness.
Huge.
Yeah. Huge. Your identity completely shifts to become a parent. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So how do you juggle work life with being a parent?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a laugh about this before. Motherhood, and I would say fatherhood, is definitely powered by love. It's sustained by caffeine and Red Bull some of the time, even though we try and promote healthier lifestyles. And sustained by wine, you know. It is. It's
difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult. And I was saying to you, when Freddie was tiny, he's like 6 months old, he's on my chest, I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I could have 5 or 10 of these things easily. And then they start growing into little humans and they start walking and talking, and that's when it gets difficult, right? Yeah. And that the few hours of time that you used to have for yourself pre-kids is no longer there anymore. Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong, it's filled with all these joyous things that go on, seeing a baby grow and learn and fill your life with so much love and happiness. It's
they actually compare parenthood and entrepreneurial journey to the exact same pain points. So it's not having, you know, you don't prioritize self is the number one thing, and that is absolutely entrepreneurial. And I can put my hand up and say, it's interesting in parenthood. It's such a challenge. You are constantly like pulling the weeds of your mind to self-prioritize, because when you can do that, you're the best parent, and you're also the best business owner. And then the other thing is burnout. So burnout and self-care, those two things are absolutely hand in hand. Being an entrepreneurial parent or a business owner parent, I think even just a working parent, to be honest with you, like the amount of, I can't even put it into words, to be honest. Now when I see parents that are successful in any way of their life, they're wealthy, I feel like I admire you so much for having that compass around. It takes a very large amount of ability to be able to do that.
It certainly does. It certainly does. And
very courageous.
I'm quite fortunate that we're in a position where we can get support around us. You know, my parents are still in the UK. Joe's mother is here, but he's going back to the UK.
Yeah.
But we're fortunate that we're in a position where we've got people that can come into the house and help us with cleaning, cooking, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've got people that who can look after Freddie for us and stuff like that when we need to.
Yeah.
But we're also in a very fortunate position where the business is in a position where my wife, for instance, doesn't necessarily need to be here all the time, and that gives her quality time with Freddie, which is what I want more than anything.
Yeah.
I think mothers have a more of a natural instinct to care for a child than a man.
Yeah.
And
especially in this, like, the sub-3 range, they, like, you know, they were in her body, you know, like my son was attached to me and feeding off, you know, your organs, and it's amazing. Have you actually seen some of the data around that? So the baby is feeding cells to the mother to heal her organs because the pregnancy is actually damaging her organs and the baby's healing her.
It's incredible.
At the same time. So, like, that bond is massive when they're born. They want mamas for a little while.
I read something where they actually don't realise that they are not part of you for the first 6 or 7 months of their life.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
they
cool.
still think they're part of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my son still thinks he's part of me at 3. And I'm like, hey, no, you need to, like, we need some independence here. Can't cling and, you know, hide behind mummy all the time.
So how do you prioritize self-care then? Because one of my mentors always says you've got to put yourself first, which is unselfishly selfish.
Yeah.
Because you can't give from an empty cup, and you mentioned it there. You become a better mum, a better parent, better business owner.
Yeah.
When you do prioritize yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty rigid with my routine on a morning. I like to get up early, make sure I get my exercise in, trying to meditate more. If I do miss something, it's my meditation because.
Yeah.
Kind of boring sitting there doing nothing, right?
That's the whole point, dear.
Yeah, I know. But,
your mind's like this.
I've started finding some joy in journaling, of all things.
Perfect. It's still meditation.
I just never thought I'd find that interesting, but at the minute I'm just like writing things, and I started following Brendan Bouchard at the start of the year.
Yeah.
High Performance Habits, and he's got some really good planners with some good prompts in there that ask some good questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how do you prioritise self-care?
Well, I was actually having a laugh this morning because I was trying to get ready to come here, and I've got so much written on my bathroom mirror in a whiteboard marker that I could barely even see myself, Neil. I'm ducking underneath it to get ready, and I'm like, gosh, Lauren, like, and that's where I am twice a day, guaranteed, in front of that mirror, and I use it like a business whiteboard.
And these are goals or messages to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So as things are coming through, I'm wiping it off and redoing it up, and it's shifting all of the time. Yeah, and look, I think having these sorts of daily habits and principles and knowing your direction of where you're going and what you want out of life, it's so important to know why you're doing everything. And sometimes the why is just having, you know, the ability to be able to move when you want to move and do, like, have, people say cliche, freedom. You know, that's the multi-millionaire goal. Everyone tends to go
laptop on a beach.
Yeah, but boring.
It is after a bit, right?
Yeah, you can only do so much of that. Yeah. So you really, you know, it's really important to honour that in yourself and to ask yourself those questions and spend, I feel like the highest level of self-care is sitting with yourself and having a conversation and working through these things and honouring that. What's important? Exercising 3 times a week, or that word, you're making that word to yourself, and you're going to honor that as much as you can. And then let's say parenthood comes in and your child gets gastro, you've got to try and find a way to ask for help and go and do that, because then when you tag team back in, it takes a village to raise a child, let me tell you. When you tag team back in, you're then the best person to help heal that child too. It's not 2 worn out individuals going through a wave together. It doesn't need to be like that.
True.
So learning to ask for help, keeping your word to yourself, they're probably my 2 biggest things.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. I've started, bought myself an ice bath.
I saw you had that.
Yeah.
This is in your backyard.
Yeah. So I did a few, was it last year or the year before? I went through this kind of just trying to test different things for myself to find out what was working best for me. And I did some work with a guy called Brendan Foley.
Yeah.
And Brendan introduced me to ice baths and breath work and stuff like that. And breath work is something that I still do now. I normally do before I go to bed. I've actually got Freddie doing it, my son.
How?
He just copies everything I do. So he sees me go, and he sits in the back of the car doing it now. It's the cutest thing.
That is
but
gorgeous.
the ice bath is something that in the summer it's really easy to get into.
Yeah.
Now it's getting a little bit cooler. There's not one part of me that wants to get up in the morning and go in that ice bath. But I keep telling myself that if I'm not going to do this thing right now, what else am I going to not do during the day?
Hey, that's the comfort zone, Neil.
Isn't it? There's nothing comfortable about sitting in a 1.5 degree ice bath for 5 minutes.
But it's not so bad in summer when it's a 40-degree day.
Easy.
There's probably
It's
this is where the challenge all is, isn't it? The mindset
100%.
challenge.
100%. What else were we talking about? Tell us about the new project then, Your Rental Resume.
Basically, it's really, really simple. It's one-on-one session with me for single working parents. So that's the criteria to meet. And then I'll go over their rental application for them and offer any guidance around how they can improve that.
Awesome.
And also I have a strategy that I'm going to advise them on within that to implicate and go out and do in the marketplace and just give a little bit of coaching around that. So I'm opening that up to 2 people per month at the moment.
How are you working that then? Because the rental market's moving so fast right now. We're still seeing 30, 40 people queuing up trying to get access to rentals.
Yeah.
More and more people coming into the country and the state specifically.
Yeah.
And not enough housing on the ground to house everybody.
Yeah. Again, humanitarian call to investors. That's something that I want to have. I'm hoping that the right people are listening to this podcast today, Neil, to be honest with you, because I feel like independent owners, like what has historically happened, have built the fundamentals of our nation, that the private investors and the private equity are going to have to do it again. So we need to come in and put some solutions in place quickly. And how are we going to do that? Listening, and it's still profitable for investors to change their strategies if they can open things up a little bit. You know, how are we going to put more beds? And also, you know, they need to be secure locations. This needs to be managed by somebody who has the capabilities to be able to do that in a holistic way, because you're dealing with human beings and children and families, and, you know, crisis, it breeds a whole different sort of scenario. So it needs to be looked at really seriously and the right sort of professionals in place.
Are we talking construction, building something specific for these people, or?
If it can be done quick enough.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that is the problem right now. I think the problem we're seeing right now is there's more volume coming back into the building market.
Yeah.
Less builders in the market to build all the properties.
Yeah.
And we're hearing rumours that there could be some more price rises coming through soon.
Which is dangerous from what I'm hearing. It's to have a profitable development in this market and you're paying increased prices on everything. I don't feel the profit margin's really there to support this theory, you know, of building more houses.
Yeah.
Even if you can get the materials. Where's the private equity incentive to do this as a builder?
Single houses are still, 7-8 months away from slab down.
Yeah.
To actually get a development feasibility to stack up for the last 2 or 3 years has been absolutely impossible.
Right.
Which has also led to the problem that we're in right now, because there's just nothing being built for a while, and now everybody's scrambling around trying to find a development site, and then we've got construction prices could be increasing again. So it's like,
why are you scrambling for a development site? I'm just.
How do you get it to work?
Yeah. How do we remove the crisis from this scenario? Because fear breeds. I hate to go down the rabbit hole too much, Neil, but you know, there's billion-dollar profits happening all from the big corporations. Like, I personally feel very screwed by some of these numbers that are coming out over COVID. And then you see very reputable builders in liquidation because they've been squeezed out, you know, and it just makes me wonder if it's been done by design. There's a bit of a transfer of wealth happening right in front of us. And I think independents, we have numbers over them, and we need to definitely do something about that to put a bit of a boot in the market.
I'm reading a book called Money Matrix at the minute, and it's about how this author sees the world as the Matrix.
Oh, interesting.
We're all just being controlled, and there's the transfer
Hologram.
of wealth, and it's been, the world is controlled by some really powerful families.
Great. It's a great book to read.
It's an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of it you sat there scratching your head thinking, is this really happening? But it is, because he's done the research and he's backed it up there as well.
COVID-19, vaccination, compulsory, with a cost associated to that. Can you imagine being a shareholder of those businesses? It's very interesting what's happened now. So I think if we can remove the 30 to 40 people on the wait list in residential property and stabilise the fear around there, we're going to stabilise it in the employment industries. We're going to stabilise the price rises that are happening, because people will be able to think straight again, and it's just going to balance all of that out and influence some change. Because we have to remember the working johns and the skilled people that are in these businesses, they do count. They do make decisions within these businesses too. They can influence change. They can influence industry change. It's not just this CEO, 10 people that control everything. We've got numbers on that. And we're in their businesses.
So how do we fix the problem that we've got right now?
You want an answer today.
I just like to brainstorm with people that are in the industry, right? Like,
yeah.
If you, like the housing minister, John Kerry's building something like 4,000 houses, costing us $2.6 billion of taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
It's good they're coming in to try and solve, because at one point they were putting their hands up completely and not offering any support in housing.
I respect what he's actually doing.
Yeah.
It's all social though. There's nothing affordable coming through, so I think he needs to stop being so pigeonholed in that social aspect. But look, he's still getting it out there. The problem that he's got, 4,000 homes could potentially house 8, 9, 10,000 people, but there's 35,000 people on the social housing waiting list, so he's essentially scratched the surface of what needs to be done. And
then it's going to grow even bigger.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything.
That statistic of 35,000 people is an old statistic.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what it is now.
Yeah. Do you feel like things are getting tighter and worse than what you've seen in the last couple of years?
Yeah, 100%. Rewe have just released their stats for March and said it's the lowest vacancy rate they've had on record.
So the old way is not working.
It's not. So what do we do?
That's why we're here, Neil.
Well, I'm trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to answer that, the shortest and quickest way to answer that is to do something. Do anything. I'll start where I stand. And if everyone takes that upon themselves and their intention is of a good intention of why they're doing that, then it's going to create some change, some positive change. And even the positive change, the ripple effect can be so small. It's just a voice where other people feel like their voice is being heard through a voice. I know. I've been in lonely places in business and in my life, and I've sat myself in those positions for a reason. Sometimes that inner voice that's happening there it's the game changer for them, where they feel like that some part of them has been heard. So we need to make sure we have that out there. At this level, we have a responsibility to do that. We have social media. We have all these ways to reach in that we've never had before. We need to utilize all of that. AI is going to support the message if you understand what is needing to be done around all of that, and use it. We've got the most incredible tools basically for free around us at the moment as entrepreneurs. It's brilliant.
It is.
It's very exciting.
It is. AI kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Good, I'm glad you said that.
A little bit. Like, we use it for certain things, but,
yeah.
When Suze does certain copy, I can just see that it's...
it's AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sounds AI, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've used it for a bit, and I'm going back to writing stuff myself now.
There's an interesting podcast on the Diary of a CEO on YouTube to do with AI, and he's actually one of the digital creators of AI. And when they started to release the beta testing on that, he was putting the brakes on and saying, no, don't launch this. This is like a weaponized machine that we're not going to be able to pull back in. But also he had a really interesting theory that it learns on its own. It learns from digital footprints. So if you understand that and you are manipulating your digital footprint, and everyone manipulates a digital footprint, it's going to change. It learns languages on its own, Neil, that they haven't taught it. It hasn't been exposed to.
That's what scares me.
You should be.
It scares me.
Everyone should be really scared.
It's like Terminator. It just needs a body to encompass, and it could walk and talk and think on its own, right?
Yeah, you really want to go down a rabbit hole with me, don't you? So The Money Matrix.
Yeah, great book by Rob Moore.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll definitely put that on my list.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
So what else is going on then? Give me some novelty. Do you want me to go through anything, pick anything out?
Yeah, why not? Let's lucky dip. What do you want to ask?
We spoke about the rental market, being a mother, coaching. You doing some coaching with anybody at the minute? Yourself, because obviously you've got all this experience, all this wisdom.
Yeah.
You're starting to offer coaching outside of your rental resume.
Yes. So I have a timeline around this. So for me, it's about 1.5 years before I want to have that set in place to be a coaching platform. It's basically going to be a digital platform, so there's no one-on-one interaction with me, going through specific strategies and just nutting them all down, nuts and bolts of even really things I was never taught, and I learnt on the ground in deals that I'm like, holy shit, you literally write a word a certain way and you can manipulate a profit from this, so there's just these real gems of doing property investing that can skyrocket what you're doing. So, little models, all based off that, all around what we've been speaking about today, but a real high level component around mindset. And it's the entrepreneurial burnout, the parental burnout focus that I want to have in this course model that I don't feel was really touched on by the mentors that I had in my life.
It's all the doing, isn't it? It's the theory component.
Yeah.
But then when you transpose that theory into practical, that's when the additional things like the burnout and the self-care come into play.
Yes, absolutely. So,
but in the early days as an entrepreneur, whether you're in property or business or both, there's not enough hours in the day. You haven't got the cash flow to support building a team around you, and you are the chief everything officer. You are doing the social media manager. You're doing the actual project management. You're doing we're doing the accounting. Your bookkeeping.
Yeah.
So where is that transition from, right, well, I'm here and I need to get to there, but this is the missing piece of it, and I just need to work harder before I can work smarter?
It's the, do I trust myself to trust others?
Ooh.
It's all high level self-care, all of it. So you can let go. You're not the best at everything. Absolutely no freaking way. But you're going to be a genius in your field of expertise in that business. And you need to respect and align with other geniuses of their fields that will come and join in with you. And that is the ultimate business, is total alignment. And how do you find that alignment? How do you know who you are in business? It is a crash course. Or you go in with someone who has gone through the minefield and you learn from their lessons and do a little bit of a faster track. But it's the same as your rental resume. For me, it's about empowering people. It's not a rescue program. I want to teach them how to fish. I want to teach investors how to fish. I'm not saying, hey, like, there's the grenade field here. I'm going to take you all the way over and just give you a property development or a profitable house flip. No, absolutely no way. I want to be there to watch you smiling in the rain. I want to show you how to dance in the rain. the whole way through, because it's going to rain and thunder and storm, but you need a team of people around you that all feel exactly like you, and the sun shines there no matter what is happening on the outside, because that's the uncontrollable part. So yeah,
I always say to my team, teamwork makes the dream work.
It is.
Like, without them, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be sat here having this conversation because I'd have loads of stuff to do, right?
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
What I'm also seeing with a lot of entrepreneurs, property people and stuff like that, they're starting to write books.
Yeah.
Is there a book in you?
Look, there has been a long-standing joke within the inner circle. If I was ever to write an audio biography, it would be called Stripper to House Flipper.
Right.
And that is a very direct...
It's a catchy title.
Thank you. Yeah, you were quite shocked.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know, but it's it's a catchy title for a book, right? And that's the intention of the title of a book, to get people in.
Yeah, look, maybe that was the intention of my life. I'm not really sure what the intention was there, but it certainly has made it very entertaining for me to live through a big life. It's been actually an honourable, like the whole way through. There's no moment of that I regret.
Yeah.
There's nothing of my journey that I would ever change. I have so much gratitude towards every single person that has come into my sphere through every stage of my life. Every stage. And I don't feel that anyone should ever be ashamed to be their true self. And the purpose of potentially writing this audio biography, it could be an audiobook, probably will just be an audiobook, let's be honest, we're in this day and age, is to empower people to be raw and authentic in social media and in business and in life, and just put your whole heart out there.
Be proud of who you are.
Be very fucking proud of who you are.
But also be aware that you're not going to please everybody, right?
No, you can actually piss everybody off really easily, Neil. That part there, I was very surprised to find in business. It was so easy to annoy people, and it was really hard to keep them happy. Really. So, like, the focus is not on that at all. It is literally blinkers on, and it's on keeping me happy and centered and peaceful and operating from a space of creativity. And from there, everyone benefits.
But if you're naturally yourself as well, you attract the right people into your life, right?
Yeah.
So the people that you don't attract in, obviously that happens for a reason, because they're not attracted to your vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people that don't, just be yourself. The people that want to be part of the journey will come on board, and the people that don't, doesn't matter.
And boundaries are very important. You know, if you're going to put yourself out there, you're in a customer service based industry. You know, stepping in, doing this podcast with you today, it's a second time in my life that I've been blessed to ask myself, do I want to be of public service? And I've said yes to doing that, so I understand the responsibility. But boundaries within your inner space, so it's not having the energy vibe matching, that doesn't matter at all. You know, it is your intention is to help others, and then on your inner circle, that's the vibe. It's the little Neil, it could be one person, that's all you freaking need in your life, that is of your vibe in business, and you're set. You know, you and Joe. Like the stability there, you and your kids, like these foundational things that you have that are your vibe tribe, it's really simple. It can even be yourself. I'll keep it real. You know, you can have your best friends and mentors. Like, it was one of the best things I learned out of Think and Grow Rich was Napoleon Hill, who had the oil business. Yep. His mentors were people that he was reading about. He was making a mastermind team in his mind and having boardroom meetings with them in his mind to start his business, because he didn't come from anywhere. There was no family network. There was none of that. So I think, you know, this is just, it's such an exciting place. It's like, it's the body development that everyone's accepted, that 100% of people can lose weight if they do X, Y, and Z. We now need 100% of people to understand that they can change their entire mindset if they do X, Y, and Z. It's not 40% of people or 10%, like they're trying to sell us, are geniuses, or 1% are geniuses. It's 100% of human consciousness is genius, just like the body, the mind, and skill set. And it doesn't take anybody to be, you can do it on your own. You can do it with your partner. You can do it, you know what I mean? There's just no limits.
Yeah. What are the steps you would say to somebody to change their mindset?
First step, search for the information. You cannot lead a horse to water and make it drink. So that's going to come from them. But where the information age is putting it, so like if, like in my instance, I wasn't surrounded by property investors or mentors, and that book that came to me was a game changer for me, but I chose to cash in the ticket and go to the seminar and sit there and do that. I could have put that book on a shelf and it never influenced my life. So it is, again, there's a lot of people that are going to listen to us and go, these two are crazy. Like, why would you want to put yourself in that position? And they would never strive for that. But the purpose to strive is for happiness. The purpose to strive is for self-love. The purpose is to believe in your abilities, whatever they are. Whatever they are, it's so different. It's just, is that message getting out there? Well, hopefully now with TikTok and everything, you know, a teen might come across a post that resonates to them and they start to ask questions, the right questions.
Take the steps forward.
Yep, absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful. Lauren,
So,
been chatting for an hour.
yeah. What's
awesome.
your usual chat time?
About 45 minutes-ish, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but
awesome.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Been good to catch up. And if there's anything I can do to help, support, add value, please let me know, because your rental resume is something that where myself and Joe in that single parent landscape,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that, cohort, something that we're really passionate about as well. So
Great,
if there's anything
good.
we can do, please shout out. And again, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No problem.
So great.
I like to finish my podcast on this saying, every master was once a disaster and every winner was once a beginner.
Do you know, isn't that fitting for everybody though, that you would
100%.
talk with? That is so beautiful.
100%. Thanks
Really
again,
love
Lauren.
that. Thank you, Neil.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.